Welcome back. Tell me something honestly. Have you ever been in a relationship where every day felt like you were slowly disappearing? Where someone who claimed to love you treated you more like a punching bag than a partner? Where you woke up already bracing for impact, already waiting for the next criticism, the next complaint, the next verbal attack? Because that was my reality once. For years. And the day I finally cracked finally took the smallest, quietest step toward reclaiming my power well. Let's just say the universe smelled like lavender-scented dryer sheets and poetic justice. If you've ever dreamed of a moment where someone who mistreated you finally got what they deserved, hit that subscribe button and drop a like right now. Because this is the story of how doing the laundry became the turning point that changed my life. I was married young, far too young to understand what real partnership looked like. When you're young and inexperienced, people tell you marriage takes work, that compromise is noble, that love means forgiving flaws. Nobody tells you that sometimes compromise is just a polite word for surrender, or that forgiveness becomes an endless excuse for abuse when you re-taught to keep the peace at any cost. My ex-husband, let's call him Mark, presented himself as charming at first. He was the type of man who could walk into a room and make everyone look at him. Not because he was impressive, but because he demanded attention like air. He spoke loudly, confidently, as if every opinion he had was a pearl of wisdom the world was blessed to receive. People mistook arrogance for strength, and I was one of them. But once the ring was on my finger, everything changed. His confidence turned into control, his jokes turned into insults. His expectations became orders. Slowly, the vibrant, loud, laughing woman I once was became quiet. Careful, shrinking like fabric left too long in scalding water. And he criticized everything, how I cooked, how I cleaned, how I dressed, how I breathed some days, as if I existed only to disappoint him. And God, did he love complaining? He could take the smallest inconvenience and turn it into a dramatic monologue like he was auditioning for a tragedy. Stubbing a toe became a traumatic event. A traffic light turning red was a personal attack from the universe. And his allergies were his crown jewels. Nobody, according to him, suffered more nobly than he did from the curses of nature. Dust, deadly; pollen, a biological weapon; perfume, practically mustard gas; and dryer sheets, apocalyptic. He claimed they made him break out, made him sneeze uncontrollably, gave him migraines, blocked his sinuses. He swore the softness of fabrics in his childhood came from magical dryer sheets created by angels. Because, of course, his childhood was perfect and his mother was perfect, and I was supposed to replicate perfection like a machine, programmed for obedience. Except when I asked his mother about it, just wanting to help, genuinely she laughed and said, "Honey, we couldn't use dryer sheets, he's allergic to them." Always has been a simple truth, a harmless fact, but when I told him, he looked at me like I'd just confessed to arson. He refused to believe it. He insisted he remembered them clearly. He argued loudly, endlessly, irrationally, because to Mark, the truth was not defined by reality, it was defined by whether he believed it. He was never wrong, ever, even when proven wrong, even when the facts screamed against him, and that attitude didn't just apply to laundry. It seeped into every corner of our lives like mold under wallpaper. If he forgot something, I was irresponsible. If he misplaced something, I was careless. If he was upset, it was my fault. If he was happy, it was because he allowed it. And I, lost and exhausted, let it happen. Survival becomes routine when escape feels impossible. One particular afternoon became the day everything changed. It started like any other, quiet, mundane, uneventful. I was in the laundry room, doing what I always did, sorting clothes into piles, whites, lights, colors, delicates, towels. My hands moved automatically. I wasn't thinking, just functioning, existing in that numb state you learn when peace seems like a fragile glass you must never bump. I lifted a wet load from the washer and started transferring it into the dryer. The smell of detergent hung in the air, the unscented, hypoallergenic kind, of course. The hum of the machine was steady, low. For once, the house felt calm. And then Mark walked in, and the calm shattered like a window hit by a brick. His voice hit me before I even saw his face, sharp, loud. edged with irritation like it was physically painful for him to speak without venom. I don't even remember what he was angry about because at that point, his shouting was background noise. Constant, buzzing static like a mosquito trapped inside your skull. I did what I always did, the practice survival reaction. The quiet nodding, the blank expression, the strategic silence. The smile without happiness, designed purely to avoid escalation. But then he crossed a line. In the middle of his tirade, he said something about how he should have married one of my cousins instead, because she would have been better, smarter, prettier, more grateful. And he said it with the confidence of a man who expected me to laugh along like it was a harmless joke instead of a knife. Something snapped inside me. Not slowly, not like a gentle crack. It was instant, violent, like a storm hitting land without warning. See, I grew up being compared. My family is massive, the kind of family where weddings require rented halls and reunions look like small festivals. And comparisons were constant, a sport almost. Why can't you be more like her? Look how well she's doing. She's prettier, she's skinnier, she's more successful. I learned to swallow anger until it tasted like metal. I learned to take humiliation like communion. I learned to step aside, shrink, apologize again, apologize harder. But that day, that sentence, it was the last drop, the dam burst. And I felt it, the shift. From powerless to dangerous, my pulse hammered in my ears. My face flushed hot, my hands shook. It felt like electricity under my skin, like something inside me had finally clawed awake after years of being buried alive. I turned slowly toward the cabinet above the washer, and I swear, time slowed down. The world narrowed to a tunnel, the cabinet, the boxes inside, the scent memory of dryer sheets, and Mark standing there screaming, completely unaware that something irreversible had just begun. Inside that cabinet were 5 boxes of dryer sheets. 5 different brands he demanded we buy because he was determined to prove he wasn't allergic, that he was right, that reality would bend to his will. A ridiculous mountain of chemical-scented paper, useless, wasteful, mocking. I opened the cabinet door. I reached in, my hand closed around the first box, and Mark didn't even pause. He was so wrapped in his imaginary grievances, he didn't notice the storm forming inches away. He just kept yelling, escalating, waving his arms, pacing like an actor performing rage instead of feeling it. I opened the box, grabbed a thick handful, maybe 10, 12 sheets, and tossed them directly into the dryer with the load I had just put in. I made no attempt to hide it. No subtlety. No secrecy. And still he didn't understand. He watched me, eyes narrowed, but brain empty. His ego simply refused to consider the possibility that I might act, might rebel, might do something other than obey. I closed the dryer door and hit start. The low rumbling spin began, and in the spinning darkness of that metal drum, wrapped in hot air, a plan was born. Every load that day received a generous handful of dryer sheets. Every shirt he loved. Every pair of pants he thought made him look important. Every sock. Every towel. The bedsheets especially, those got 2 handfuls. Years of swallowed rage measured out in scented slips of fabric-softening vengeance. And he watched it all completely unaware. The irony still makes me laugh. That night we went to bed in silence. The lights off, the room dark. Just the quiet ticking of the ceiling fan and the soft rustling of sheets as we settled in, and then it began. At first it was just a sniff, then another. Then a congested snort loud enough to vibrate the mattress. Then the sneezing rapid-fire, violent, dramatic. His breathing turned into wheezing, that wet, whistling inhale like a balloon losing air. He clawed at his skin neck, arms, chest scratching like he was being eaten alive. It should have been annoying. It should have kept me awake. But I slept like a baby. For the first time in a long, long time, I felt calm, safe, powerful. Listening to his snot symphony was like hearing justice sung in chorus. Every sneeze a verse, every scratch a drum beat, every miserable groan an applause line. He spent the night suffering, eyes watering, nose running, skin blotchy red and inflamed. And the best part? He never suspected a thing. The next morning he staggered into the kitchen looking like he'd been run over by a pollen truck. He was coughing, sniffling, blowing his nose with enough force to inflate a raft. He complained nonstop about how terrible he felt, how unfair life was, how nobody understood his suffering, and I just sipped my coffee and nodded sympathetically. "Oh, sweetheart," I said. "Maybe it's allergies," he groaned. "I know it's allergies. But I don't know what caused it. I bit my tongue so hard I'm surprised I didn't bleed. Because what causes a flare like that? How about several hundred dryer sheets infused into every fabric you touch, and it didn't stop? Not that day. Not the next, not for weeks. Every load of laundry, every fresh shirt, every towel that touched his skin carried the lingering chemical residue that turned his immune system into a crying toddler with a skinned knee. He went through boxes of tissues, bottles of allergy pills, nasal sprays so strong they could dissolve concrete. He blamed the weather, blamed the air quality, blamed seasonal pollen, blamed dust mites, blamed the house itself. He tore apart closets, disinfected vents, vacuumed the same carpet 5 times in one day. He even suggested we might need to call an allergist or maybe an exterminator or maybe move entirely because clearly the environment was toxic. And oh, the dramatic suffering. He looked like a tortured saint lamenting the cruelty of existence. He moaned, he groaned. He draped himself on the couch like a Victorian woman dying of emotional distress. Meanwhile, I folded laundry and smiled. It wasn't violent, it wasn't loud, it wasn't destructive. But it was justice, slow, lingering, earned. Every sniffle was repayment for every insult. Every scratch was repayment for every belittling comment. Every sneeze was repayment for every moment he made me feel small. And in that silence, something changed in me. I realized I wasn't powerless. I realized he could be defeated not by fighting him on his terms, but by reclaiming myself on mine. And once I saw that truth, I couldn't unsee it. The dryer sheets weren't revenge, they were a catalyst. A spark, the first step toward the door I eventually walked through. Not long after, I left, divorced, rebuilt, became someone whole again. It's been decades since then. A lifetime lived without being screamed at. A life filled with peace instead of fear. Laughter instead of walking on eggshells. But to this day, when I walk past the laundry aisle in a store, and that familiar artificial floral fragrance drifts into the air, I smile, because dryer sheets don't just soften clothes. Sometimes they soften the ground beneath your feet just enough to help you step away from a life that is killing you. Sometimes the small choices are the ones that save you. And sometimes justice is quiet, warm, and smells like chemical lavender. So to anyone listening who feels trapped, minimized, controlled, here's what I learned. You are not weak for surviving. You are not dramatic for hurting. You are not broken for bending. But one day, something will snap loud or silent and you will rise. And when that moment comes, you will never go back. If you've ever tasted that sweet moment of standing up for yourself, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories where karma has perfect aim. And tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge or justice you've ever witnessed? I read every story. I can't wait to hear yours. Thank you for being here. And remember, sometimes the softest things deliver the loudest karma.